Folks, David here on the Vintage Future once again, and today I want to feature on my channel a very special guest for the second time ever, the apex predator of boots, the king of all boot lasts. I'm talking about the mighty Viberg 310, and this time in horsebutt leather. Oh, yes. So yeah, these boots smell really nice. Most leather does. Most like real leather does. You know, Chrome XL, Dublin, Shell Cordovan, and these have their own unique smell. That's you could just do a whole episode. Maybe I should one time. This whole episode on the different smells of different kinds of leathers. But this is a very special boot. Honestly, this is probably the most special boot I've ever gotten, and that's because it's just so rare and it represents a boot that I just have really loved ever since I discovered it. The first time I discovered the 310 was actually through my friend Dublin Premium. He posted his 310s on Reddit, and I'd never seen anything like it. I was just like, that is so freaking crazy. Like, what is that thing? And initially I was just like, good for you, buddy, but I'll never own those. That's just way too extreme for me. Too loud, too aggressive, too in your face. Like, I'm afraid of what people might say, you know. But it was keeping me up at night, basically, right? And I'm just like, can't stop thinking about this thing. I couldn't shake it, you know. So after a few months, I was like, hey, man, where did you get those? So I got some from Kentaris in Germany in olive wax flesh on a commando sole. And maybe you've seen my other review on those on my channel. If you've not, check it out. And those were amazing. However, I sized them wrong. Now, you can still trust all my sizing advice from my past videos because they're all based on the Brannock. But the issue is I had my Brannock wrong at the time, so my starting point was wrong. I had gotten it done in like high school, and either it was wrong then, or maybe I have feet that changed over time. But a friend suggested I double check my Brannock at the end of 2020, and I realized to my dismay that a lot of the boots I had were missized, which actually explains some of the really minor issues I was having with some of them. So most of the boots that I reviewed up until like the end of 2020, most of those reviews are boots that I've now sold off. So still reliable information. I went and double checked just to make sure everything's good. Still reliable sizing information and information on the boots, but a lot of those boots I don't have anymore. So anyways, I had those, and ever since I had to get rid of those, I sold all those boots, was like, but I just want to start over. Ever since I sold those, I was like, man, I want another pair of 310s. And of all the 310s, the one I wanted the most was the one in Horsebutt. This is Cuoio, I think is how you say it, Cuoio, Cuoio Horsebutt from the Merriam Tannery in Italy. These are the ones. And there was another one that released about the same time called Moss Horsebutt, 2 different colors, basically the same thing. And I thought, man, these are the ones. But the problem is they had an issue in production. So with a really thick leather like Horsebutt, it's going to wrinkle on you like this. You see these wrinkles? And Brett knew that. Brett Viberg knew that when he was going into it. But of all the boot makers out there, he's one of the most ballsy. And so he was like, forget it. I'm trying it. It's cool. We'll see what we can make happen. And as expected, they would wrinkle, they wouldn't sit flat over this extreme bump toe, and when they would try to fix them, you know, then you have the potential for the leather to tear at that point. And so after having a ratio of only like something like he said, you know, 1 out of every 6 would be successful, he decided to scrap the idea after only a small handful had made it through production and take all that leather, the Moss Horsebutt and the Cuoio Horsebutt, and send that to be made into 2030s and 1035s. But I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to find a pair of these just when I thought, man, I'll never get a pair of those. A special friend was like, hey, man, I'll help you get a pair. And man, couldn't be more grateful, couldn't be more deeply appreciative. And we had this whole unboxing with my family. The kids were super stoked about it too. You know, to be honest, they were a little more excited about the box and the bubble wrap. But yeah, one of my sons at least was really happy about the boots as well, and my wife was elated along with me, and so that was a fun family experience. But yeah, on the one hand, there's nothing really special about these. You know, they're just on day night, standard 310. You know, it's got the Woodsman heel, Jake, I learned this from you. They're not Cuban heels. They're not dogger heels. It's a woodsman heel or a logger heel. But yeah, it's just got that, and it's not even lined on the inside, stitched down, and it's not even their newer high SPI that they're doing. Yeah, so in a lot of ways, it's just a regular old 310, but because of how I got them, because of the kind of leather and the rarity of this, I mean, man, this is possibly the most special boot I've ever had. It instantly went to the top of my list. Maybe the classiest boot in a simple way. And that's saying a lot because, I got a couple pairs of Edward Greens and some clinch and Alden Shell. But I'm just totally beside myself with joy at picking up this legendary pair. I mean, man. So I'm definitely going to be babying these a bit. Not like these Edward Greens, which you'd think I would baby because, Edward Green. Moolah. But yeah, I've been hiking with these, and man, these have been taking it like a champ. I just love getting out in the dirt with these and going on some adventures. They totally have that vibe of like, proper English smart look, but at the same time, adventure is out there. Let's go get them. So I've been doing that with those, but these I'm definitely gonna baby. I want these to last a long time, especially because that's one of the reasons I ended up getting rid of the olive waxed flesh ones, aside from the fact that the sizing wasn't quite right. I had done too much in them and started to collapse the bump toe. And if you collapse the bump toe on a 310, like what's the point of even having it, right? Because this is what makes the 310 the 310. So before I get into some particulars of what I like, just in case you're not really familiar with this boot, let me just tell you a little bit about how it became a thing. So when Brett Viberg moved into the role of main designer for Viberg in 2007, the 310 was like his first thing, really. Right after that was the instantly successful 2030 that just took the whole heritage world by storm and is, arguably the greatest service boot of all time, at least as far as like style goes, if you want straight reproduction military stuff, there's other brands, but if you want some military-esque but very modern and fashionable and really just tough as nails boot that just looks good with basically everything, the 2030 is the deal. It's the deal. No one can hold a candle to the 2030 in that event, if you will. But the 310 preceded that. The 310 came the year before, and what he did was him and Wesco and Julian Boots in Southern California, they were sampling out for Double RL. Ralph Lauren wanted to make a heritage footwear line, and that's what Double RL is, and they sell some other stuff as well. They were sampling out for them, and in the process of that, Brett was checking out some archive lasts from Springline, which is the last maker in Northampton, England, which, if you don't already know, is like the mecca of shoemaking in the Western world. That's where virtually all the famous UK shoe and boot makers came from, and many of them are still there. So that's just like, it is to Western shoemaking what Nashville is to country music. Let's just put it that way. So he was checking out some of their lasts, and he found this Springline last that had a crazy sprung toe. And he thought, man, that's cool. I like that. And then he was digging around in the Dayton Archive, another Canadian work boot company up there in the Pacific Northwest. And he found this, it was called something like a Tuffy toe, some sort of an ammo boot. And it didn't have a sprung toe, but it did have a bump toe. Other than that, it was just kind of a regular boot. And so he had this idea. He's like, hey, I'm going to take the bump toe and I'm going to stick it with the sprung toe. And then I'm going to make it more extreme than it already is. Because both of those boots, the spring and the bump in those two boots, were not as extreme as what Brett ended up with. So he put this thing together. It's just this crazy Frankenstein of a boot. And then he started to work with it to see how extreme he could get it. He kept doing different samples of it. And every time he would make the bump and the spring more and more extreme and bring it up further and further and further and just get crazier and crazier and crazier with it. Until he found what he felt like was the perfect balance. And that's how we got this 310. And for that reason, there's really nothing like it in the world. Some things are similar. Truman came out with their 20 last fairly recently in 2021, and some of those things are kind of like it, but not really, not really. If you really look at the two side by side, or this 310 side by side with anything else like that, you quickly find that it's really its own thing, and lasting any leather, not just Horsebutt, over this bump toe like that, it could be very difficult. So special boot. Special makeup. So let's jump into what I love about it. Well, the reason this one is cool for me, one, the Horsebutt is just beautiful. So let's check that out. These don't photograph really that well. As you can see, it's kind of a tan peanut color, maybe like a clay color, and pairs really well, I'll say, with just about anything. Like if you're tired of brown as your neutral casual color, I would suggest something like this. It doesn't have too much like orange or red in it, like Dublin might for some people, but it can function as a brown, but a lighter brown, and it's not quite as pale as like natural Chrome XL, and so it's a really good option there. But as you can see, all these beautiful striations and marbling and stuff, all this character. It doesn't photograph well because it either ends up washing out and looking really sickly and pale, which is not actually how it looks, and then you don't see all the character, or you see too much of the character if it's darker, and it gives you this false sense of how crazy and cool these are. Like if you look at the product photos, it's way more extreme than it actually is in real life. So hard to photograph, but I can assure you it's a great color. There's plenty of beauty in this leather, and as I said, it pairs really well. Like if you were to use these in contrast to some olive chinos or some indigo denim or some black pants, right? Black jeans even, gray, all that offers a really nice contrast. But you can also go with a nice refreshing like spring summer fit, a lot of light colors, and go with like a white shirt and some chinos that are khaki or beige, and then wear these. And yeah, like I said, it's just this kind of refreshing look made up of all the lighter colors in the spectrum. But yeah, this leather has just so much going for it. So yeah, not the perfect representation on this camera, but it's still pretty cool, and I can assure you that it's even better in real life. So they're a joy to wear. But the other thing I like about the Horsebutt is how thick it is, because as I said, what's the point of having this bump toe if it's going to collapse over time? Because then there's no point in having a 310. Something structured like the Horsebutt leather, in my opinion, is the optimal, the ideal leather for something like a 310, because unlike my olive waxed flesh ones, which the olive waxed flesh, any waxed flesh, is basically Chrome XL turned with the rough side out and waxed, right? So it's basically just Chrome XL. And that leather is very floppy and soft. That's why it's so comfortable. So you would want that for, like, say, a moccasin or something like that. However, when you put it over this bump toe, it just fights the toe puff. It doesn't want to cooperate with the toe structure. The toe structure is trying to keep this bump toe nice and perky, and the Chrome XL just wants to relax and collapse and bag out and get saggy and drapey, right? That's the nature of that leather. Whereas with the Horsebutt, see how much structure it has? Like it, even if you like push it down, it just doesn't really want to go down. It really wants to hold that shape. And so instead of fighting this toe bump, it's cooperating with that toe structure. And so that, coupled with the fact that this particular pair actually has a harder toe structure, I think this is dipped fiberglass, whereas the olive waxed flesh ones had like the ping pong thermoplastic. So that, coupled with the fact that this is a really hard toe structure, makes me really happy with these, because I think that toe bump is going to last for a really long time. Like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it's going to be just as perky and extreme. And so for that reason, I'm especially happy about this pair. So the leather's beautiful. The leather smells beautiful. It fills my closet with that aromatic goodness. My wife's even enjoying it, which is funny. We both like walking into the walk-in closet and smelling these boots. It makes me want to wear them every day, and it kills me because I can't wear them every day. But aside from the look and the smell of the leather and that structure and this toe bump, which I'm really happy about, I also really like the uniqueness of 5 eyelets. That's kind of an OG Viberg thing. It harkens back to when they first came out. So 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there, maybe even into the 2010, 2011. I don't know when it stopped, but they did a lot more stuff like that. 5 eyelets, all that kind of stuff. And since then, we haven't seen much of that. And I love that. Not everyone does, but I absolutely love it. Functionally, it's nice because you only have 5 eyelets instead of 7 to deal with. But in addition, it adds this air of simplicity and almost like this primitive classiness, if you will. It's this minimalistic take on design, which I think with something like a 310 style really plays into its hand really well. It gives us balance, right? Because it's such a large boot, right? And if you put 9 eyelets or whatever right here, I don't know, I just feel like it would look a bit odd. And so this is almost like the Tonka truck of boots. And so just putting the 5 there, I think takes care of business and can be stylish in this really kind of cool and raw way. It's kind of like an old new, if you will. So really like that. I like how this came with these tan kind of clay colored rawhide laces instead of the two-tone ones. It's usually like dark on the sides and then on the cut edge it'll be light. And I think this matches with that really well. Other than that, it's a pretty basic boot. It's got the floating tongue, which is lined here. The inside is unlined except for the vamp, which is lined. Same super rock solid hard leather heel counter in there that I love Viberg for so much, with this little jog, so it kind of cups the top of your heel. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't love these things more. So let's talk about sizing. So my sizing from the last video is still correct. You basically just go one size down from your US Brannock, and you don't want to go any lower than that. These are deceiving because they're really roomy, right? So that can tend to make you want to size down too much until you get them snug, even more so than with other boots. But you really don't want to do that because it's really about placement. It's not going to function correctly. The boot isn't going to rock or walk correctly off of this point of axis, as it rolls like that. It's not going to do that right if your foot is too far forward or too far back in this vamp area. So you really want your ball lined up right here with the bottom of the dip. And that's really how this boot works. You're not going to end up with as much creasing right here because with the sprung toe, you have to crane your foot much farther forward before it starts to crease, So yeah, one size down from your Brannock, just a quick sizing thing. There's arch length, which is your heel to ball, and then there's overall length, which is your heel to toe length. I would not go any smaller than one size down from your heel to toe. But typically, you just want to take whichever of those two measurements is longer and measure based off that. Or in some cases, you might go split the difference between the two. Let's say your heel to ball, is like a 12 and your heel to toe is like an 11. Well, then you might split the difference between the two. It's always just a little different. You can consult a foot doctor or a foot specialist or a orthopedic shoe specialist, if you really want to figure out what to do with your feet, if your feet are really strange. But for the most part, you just go off, your arch length, I would say. And at the very least, like the most you would do, like I said, would be your overall length. Just go one size down. Anyways, if you do that, then everything's going to be lined up. You'd be right in here. This is not a good last for you if you're the kind of person that really wants a snug fit. If I walk around with these unlaced, the boot doesn't hold onto my foot anywhere, not in the heel or the waist or the ball. Now, maybe it would if you had really just meaty feet, but still, I don't think so even then. I think it's just not it's not a last that like cups your foot. There are others that do, but this one does not. So if that's your whole shtick, like you just love that tight, snug feel, I'd say don't get that. I'd say get something more like 2040 or 2020, or in other brands, the Galway. This is the 202 last from Edward Green. This thing cups my foot super well, even if the laces aren't tied. But yeah, if you're looking for just a really cool last at this monstrosity of a boot, And by the way, it's not that hard to pull off, so you should try it. Don't think, oh, it's too aggressive, it's too loud, it's too crazy. You can do it, trust me. You know, if you want that, something that's nice and roomy, makes a good winter boot, you know, thick socks, all that stuff, then go for it. Go for it. These are pretty sweet, and who knows, maybe the stars will align for you too, and someday you'll end up with some Horsebutt versions. But that is my take on this 310. Top of my collection right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it stays up there. Like I said, even though I have some Clinch and Edward Green and stuff, I just feel like these ones still just exceed those ones. Top of the pack, front of the pack, best ones ever, and I can't wait to take care of them and see them take care of me. So, thanks for watching, guys. As I always say, let your boots take you to places more important than the boots themselves, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.